This is like when people say you need to drink this miracle tea because this miracle tea contains 25 times more the amount of iron than a steak does. But what they fail to take into account is the serving size, because in order to get that 25 time benefit, you would need to consume 100 grams worth of that miracle tea versus 100 grams of that steak. And whenever you consume tea, you're not consuming 100 grams. You're maybe getting 1 gram worth of tea. And whenever you consume steak, you're getting way more than 100 grams worth of steak. So it's not really a fair comparison, and that's the exact same comparison that is made with regard to oxalate consumption. If you were to look at that chart, hey everyone, thanks for tuning in and welcome back to another Carnivore Q&A. Steven here with Team Euphoric, and today we're going to be talking about herbs, spices, and oxalates. There is a lot of hysteria with regard to oxalates, with some people suggesting that you need to eliminate them completely from your diet and avoid them entirely. And if you're following the carnivore diet, this is literally going to be impossible because we endogenously produce oxalates. When we metabolize amino acids, some of those amino acids are going to be converted into oxalates. So if you're consuming any type of meat, there are going to be oxalates found in the muscle meat that you are consuming. Granted, it's going to be in very, very small and almost insignificant amounts. However, they are going to be found in the meat tissue, so it's impossible to completely eliminate them from your diet. And for most people, this really isn't going to be an issue. For the general population, if you are consuming oxalates, as long as they are in small amounts, you're going to be able to tolerate them just fine. And as long as you're consuming enough water, you're going to be able to flush them out of your system. And then for a subsection of the population, they are not going to react to them very well. They're going to react very, very poorly. So for that specific type of population, then for those individuals, it would benefit them to minimize oxalate consumption as much as possible. But for the general population, if you are getting a little bit of oxalates in your diet, it's really not going to be that big of a deal. And the reason I'm talking about this right now is because over the past weekend, somebody was talking about starting the carnivore diet, and they wanted to know if they were allowed to consume herbs and spices while following the carnivore diet. And of course, everybody needed to bring up the topic of oxalates and say, no, you need to avoid oxalates completely because herbs and spices contain oxalates, and oxalates are going to cause XYZ types of diseases, and that simply is not the case. Now, with regard to this specific individual, the specific spice that they were talking about was turmeric. And of course, somebody had to point out this chart right up over here and saying how turmeric is one of the highest gram per gram oxalate containing foods that there is. And these types of comparisons annoy the hell out of me. And one of the reasons that this is really annoying is because you have to take into account the relativeness of the serving size. This is like when people say you need to drink this miracle tea because this miracle tea contains 25 times more the amount of iron than a steak does. But what they fail to take into account is the serving size, because in order to get that 25 time benefit, you would need to consume 100 grams worth of that miracle tea versus 100 grams of that steak. And whenever you consume tea, you're not consuming 100 grams. You're maybe getting 1 gram worth of tea. And whenever you consume steak, you're getting way more than 100 grams worth of steak. So it's not really a fair comparison, and that's the exact same comparison that is made with regard to oxalate consumption. If you were to look at that chart, on the high end is the turmeric, and then on the lowest end is a yam. The yam is roughly the turmeric is a little bit more than 50 times more amount of oxalates on a gram per gram basis than the yam. However, let's say you were to consume a yam and pour turmeric over that yam. There is going to be more oxalates found in the yam than in the turmeric, because when you are pouring turmeric over the yam, you might be pouring 1 gram over there. So even though there is more oxalates in the actual turmeric than in the yam itself, when you consume the yam, you're going to be consuming more than 50 grams worth of yam. So even though the relative amount of oxalates found in the turmeric is going to be more than the yam, the absolute amount of oxalates is going to be way higher in the yam itself, because you're going to be consuming way more than 50 grams worth of yam for the 1 gram of turmeric that you're going to be sprinkling over it. So if you are somebody that doesn't really have any issues with regard to oxalates and you're able to tolerate them just fine, and incorporating a little bit of herbs and spices into the carnivore diet is going to make it easier for you to adhere to the carnivore diet, then by all means go ahead and add a little bit of herbs and spices on your food. It's really not going to be that big of a deal. And if you are one of those unfortunate individuals who does not tolerate very, very well, and you react very, very, very poorly, then for you, it would be beneficial to minimize it as much as possible. But the hysteria with regard to oxalates really needs to stop, because of all the things that you do throughout the day. Oxalate consumption is not even going to crack the top 10 of the most detrimental things that are going to impact your health. So really, with regard to oxalate consumption, is it beneficial? No. But is it as detrimental as everybody is saying? No, absolutely not. If you can tolerate it, fine. Put a little bit of turmeric on your food. It's really not going to be that big of a deal. If you don't tolerate it, don't use it. But that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions at all, go ahead and ask your questions down in the comment section so I can help you guys out. But that's pretty much it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to smash that like button so I know to keep making these types of videos in the future. And if you're either new to the channel or haven't subscribed yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Is going to be uploading new videos every single day. That's it for today's video. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you again tomorrow.